We're talking with Dalton Crossan, who is just announced that from his NFL career and a longtime football player was drafted by the PLL Chaos. Dalton, we can talk about two-sport athletes. We can talk about your NFL career, your best player in Long Island as a high school player. But I want to know something that from the very beginning is that I've always been fascinated with Long Island attacks. They seem to be the best in the country. And of all the questions I could ask you, I want to start with, why does Long Island produce so many great attack players?
I don't know. I think it's I usually compare Long Island lacrosse with Texas high school football. Just because it's the main thing. It's kind of the thing that everybody talks about. It's the biggest place in the country. I'd say Long Island and maybe Baltimore, Maryland, are the two really, really hotbeds for lacrosse. So I think kids are playing all year round, as I did from a young age. I started playing football and lacrosse at probably about, 4 or 5 years old. But the only difference is football is just football season. Lacrosse is, there's summer and there's fall, there's spring, there's winter, there's literally every single season of the year you're playing lacrosse. So I think that's, a big difference. The same way, kids in Florida play baseball all year round because of the weather, or, kids in Texas, they're playing football all year round, and that's the only thing they're really focused on. I think that's a big, part of it, and why there are a lot of really, really, good, solid players that come out of Long Island for lacrosse.
Why are we so enamored with two-sport athletes? I think of Deion Sanders, and all the other players that had two-sport careers. In the day I grew up, I'm an old guy, but the reality to it is you played a variety of sports, and it's just that's just the way it was. I know the age of specialization is what it is, but now coaches are clamoring for wanting two-sport athletes.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going
to say, I think, people are interested in it when guys do it, both sports at the highest level, because like you said, I think that if you go look at any professional athlete in any sport, I don't even could give you a percentage, but 90% of them, 75% of them, whatever it is, played multiple sports, growing up, whether it was, at a young age or through high school, or, some even through college, or, played two sports. But I think that, it's definitely, a storyline or something that's interesting because of the skill sets, that might be different from sport to sport. Sometimes it might be very different, or sometimes, which I feel like in my case, in lacrosse and football, a lot of the skill sets are pretty similar. I always compare it to like the way I dodge in lacrosse is the same way that I beat a linebacker in one-on-ones, when I'm trying to, run a route to catch a pass. So I think, I always tell parents when I'm talking to them about their kids, or young kids when I'm talking with them or working with them, that I highly, highly suggest as you're growing up to play as many sports as possible, because I really think that they translate a lot of the skills, skill sets and things like that are translate back and forth between sports very, very well.
Does your favorite sport at the moment depend on the season? My point to it is, you love football during football season, lacrosse during lacrosse season, or was there always a favorite of those two?
I'd say it depended on the season. Yeah, it was, football during football, lacrosse during lacrosse. It was whatever I was kind of, focused on at the moment. Obviously, football won out in terms of going to college and trying to play professionally, because the NFL was always my dream, since I can remember, since 4 or 5 years old. That was kind of, always my lifelong dream. I was fortunate enough and blessed enough to be able to make it there. Would have liked to have, a longer career, but injuries are, part of the game, and that's the nature of the beast in terms of football. So, now, I'd say football was my favorite sport for, the past however many years, since I started playing in college all the way up through the pros. But now, couldn't be more excited to shift gears, and now lacrosse is my favorite sport because that's what I'm focused on. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I get that. But sometimes we all play multiple sports, but there's always just that sort of that one that sticks out. That's
right.
That's a little more fun than the next one. We may play golf and we may play basketball and all the rest of it, but sometimes there's that go-to. But when you're a young high school, or even when you're a senior, does that discussion about NFL, maybe professional lacrosse, and understand that they're apples and oranges from a financial standpoint, but is money part of that, just the driving, or just the love of the sport?
I think it's the love of the sport. I mean, yeah, it is. It's not like when you're a senior in high school, especially because you have such a long journey ahead of you, you know what I mean, to make it to the NFL from the senior in high school. Like, of course, I always believed it. I always thought, from the time I was 5 years old, I always thought that, and believed in myself that I could make it there. And then that didn't change through high school, through college, so on and so forth. But yeah, obviously, that there's, professional football is much bigger than a professional lacrosse at that time. And, the financial aspect is definitely different, but that's definitely not what goes into the decision at all. It's more just the love of the game and that being a dream and watching those, my favorite players on TV from a young age and, all that kind of stuff.
I asked the question because I grew up in a household. My dad had spent about 150 games in the NHL, but he was a career minor leaguer. And he made enough money to roof houses in summertime for his father-in-law because professional sports wasn't enough to pay the rent. And his wife was more successful than he was. And so it was a different animal. So by the time we got to college, it was like you never thought about being a pro athlete. Not that you ever had any talent, but the financial aspect of it, watching somebody have to, work as a regular laborer in the off season, that's not the case now. Now it's, and the point I want to make is that guys now, your body is your tool. So you have to take care of it, and it's the rah-rah of winning one for the team is really not the point. You're trying to make money at a career using the physical tools you have. So you have to make sure that you don't play injured, so that it's a long term and they get rid of you because it's not it's show business. It's the sort of approach to it. That takes a team.
Yeah, and I learned the hard way, but I even could say like people who are fans of the NFL or, oh, why isn't this guy playing? Or why did he get cut? Or why is he on his seventh team in 4 years? Like it's, unless you like live it like up close and personal, you really don't like fully grasp, the business that it is and how cutthroat it is, but it really is. And at that level, yes, you're a team guy and, you're doing what's best for the team. But when you get to that level and there's that kind of money involved, that's why you see, guys who are in college, who are stars at college, and they're sitting out their bowl game, right? Their last year because they want to go to the NFL. It's like, how could you do that to your brothers, right? 90% of these guys will never play another snap of football. But at the same time, God forbid, you suffer an injury in that game and there goes, $10 million out the door. Like that's life-changing money. So it really is, once you get to that level, of the big time Division I football and then into, the NFL, it really is, you got to look out for yourself. You got to make sure you're not playing injured. You really got to make sure that, everything is the way it should be and the way you want it to be, because if not, you could be talking about, leaving a lot of money on the table.
Well, I kind of joke with the PLL buying the MLL, and there's some discussion about, there's going to be a shortage of jobs of what there were because there's less teams playing professional lacrosse. There's only so much money to go around. The idea that you would sign or Chris Hogan would sign, and maybe taking some places of other lacrosse players, I think it's a laugh if you have any understanding of professional sports, because best guy wins, best guy stays. The guy that can help me win. It's not about whether or not you're a good guy, and it is, but you want good locker room guys. But at the end of the day, your talents will allow you to play or they won't. And so I think sometimes it's disingenuous. I think a lot of it comes from armchair quarterbacks who just have never really understood the premise.
Right.
Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I've seen those, on social media since Hogan and I announced that we're playing, and I get a laugh out of it as well. I think it's funny, but I do, see where they're coming from. I don't agree with it. You know what I mean? In terms of we shouldn't get an opportunity because we haven't played in so long. At the end of the day, I think we're being signed because we have had successful, lacrosse careers, obviously at a much lower level. Actually, him a higher level than I did. He played Division I, college lacrosse. I haven't played since high school. But I think the main reason why we were signed was just because, athleticism and our speed and explosiveness and what we can do and what we've proven we can do from an athletic standpoint, not so much as a lacrosse skill standpoint, but I think we've both been working very, very hard on, getting that back. And it's, I compare it to riding a bike. It's I've been playing lacrosse since I was 5 years old, and I haven't played at, competitively over the past eight years, however long it's been. But that doesn't mean I haven't had a stick in my hand. And, a lot of my friends play, so whether that's having a catch or playing wall ball or doing whatever. And like you said, that's professional sports. You're going to bring a guy in that you think has the opportunity to help your team. And at the end of the day, I don't have a roster spot. Chris Hogan doesn't have a roster spot. We still need to go to training camp, prove it, and prove to the coaches. And, obviously in my case, it's Coach Towers and wherever Hogan winds up, but you got to go in there and make the team and beat somebody out. So it's not, it by no means is this like we're just being handed anything. You know what I mean? I think that we've both worked extremely hard in another sport, right, in football, to make it to the level we were at, to get noticed and to be able to, be thought highly enough of where, the coaches will bring us in and give us a shot and see what we could do. But at the end of the day, you still got to, earn it and win a roster spot in camp.
Andy Towers, who's the Chaos head coach, mentioned that you might be one of the best athletes walking in just because of your size and your speed. Does that put extra pressure on you, or is it just a statement made?
No, I don't think it puts pressure on me. I've become pretty good at dealing with pressure and, handling it. My whole life I've been kind of, flown under the radar or, had to play with the chip on my shoulder, wasn't highly recruited out of high school to play football. And then, wasn't invited to the NFL Combine when I thought I should have been, possibly could have been drafted 5th, 6th, 7th round, wasn't drafted, had to go in as undrafted free agent. So I've kind of dealt with that, people doubting you, flying under the radar. And then when he says, a statement like that, it's his opinion. And I agree with him just because I am confident in myself. By no way, shape, or form do I think that me just being a good athlete is going to translate. You know what I mean? I think I still need to be able to play lacrosse, which I'm confident in as well, but I still have to go out there and prove it. You know what I mean? I don't think that, he's one of the best athletes in the league, he can play here and he's, you know what I mean? I don't think that anything's going to be handed to me. And I know how tall of a task it's going to be to compete with the best lacrosse players in the world, being out of the game for so long. Like I said, I'm confident in myself and I'm confident that I could do it, but I do know that it's going to be a challenge and then I have to, work my ass off for it.
Have you figured out what position you're going to think you're going to play?
Yeah, I think I'm going to play midfield. I'm definitely going to play midfield. And, through my conversations with coach, it's, I think the initial reaction is, he could play D midi, right? As an athlete, somebody who's explosive and can run. He could play defense, and then I can be very, dangerous in transition, especially because of the league and the short shot clock and, the shortened field. I can use my speed and, catch the ball on a fast break or do whatever, pick the ball up, get a ton of ground balls, work in transition and play defense. But he was like, if you come to training camp and you could play offense, right, then I'll put you on offense sometimes. But I think that, with the work that I'm putting in, I hope to be able to contribute on an offensive side as well. But at the end of the day, I'm all for, whatever he thinks, my role would be to best help the team. So whether that's, just play defense and run in transition, great. Whether he thinks that I could play some offense and my stick skills and lacrosse IQ and all that kind of stuff is there at that level, great as well. I'm kind of, in for whatever he thinks can help best suit the team win.
You're listed at 5'11", about 205. Is that about where you are?
Yeah, pretty much exactly where I am. Yeah.
As a coach with a midfielder with speed, I mean it's almost the perfect size player in that sport. And I say that because it's that, and you're not really a fire plug, but that's sturdy, and you're
right.
You're not 6'6", so you're not. It's not. I mean, I've got a few midfielders right now that are in that same size, not skill level or speed, but I think it's almost a perfect size because that's one of the nice things about lacrosse. It's still a sport left where you don't have to be 6'6" and 260.
Right. Exactly. There's definitely a lot of smaller guys, and I think that'll, work to my advantage. Hopefully, just in terms of, if I'm running in a straight line, I'd rather be with speed. If you're a little bit heavier and sturdier and stronger, which I've got from my football days, I don't think lacrosse training and football training is definitely not the same in terms of lifting weights and having to be bigger. I had to get my body ready to take hits from 320-pound defensive tackles, from 6'4", 250-pound inside linebackers who run 4.5s, 4.4s, so that's kind of like what I'm used to and kind of what my body's made for, just over the past however many years of training. So I think that'll give me, at least a little bit of an advantage if I'm dodging or running, clearing the ball, in transition or dodging to go to the goal. And not being able to be like knocked off my line as much, by a check for a defender, kind of just run through it rather than, having that mentality of a football running back, dodging to the goal rather than, just your normal lacrosse guy who hasn't dealt with that as much, I guess is the best way to put it.
In terms of stick skills, what have you been working on just to get the stick ready?
Everything. I mean, it's funny because I've been telling people that, even growing up, I stopped playing summer lacrosse probably after 9th grade or after 8th grade because I just wanted to focus on football and go into those camps to try and get recruited. And even growing up, even when I was young, I was always, I didn't really play that much lacrosse or practice or like really, really different, you know what I mean? Like work on the skill that much unless I was in a lacrosse practice or a lacrosse game. So I think in the past year, again, because I decided that I was going to try and play professional lacrosse about a year ago. It just didn't work out because of COVID that, I think I would have played last year, but the way everything worked out with COVID, it put a stall on it. But I've been working over the past year, I think more on stick skills and wall ball and shooting on the run and, my right hand, because I'm a lefty, but I always did not have a right hand. Even in high school, I didn't have a right hand at all. I think I scored like 60 goals my junior year, and I think 2 of them were righty. It was literally just all left hand. So I've worked on my right hand and just my stick skills in general more in the past year than I think I did my entire life cumulatively before that. So I mean, I feel really good and feel like I'm finally able to just fully focus on lacrosse, which I never did in the past. So I think that's definitely a big thing.
If timing is everything, I'm a box guy that came out a left-handed box guy, and one-handed was just the way we played. It's just
right, exactly. Yeah, I've seen.
So
the Canadians
have opened some doors that you don't necessarily have to be two-handed just because you come from Long Island. So that has some benefits. But. Welcome back to show 4 of Michigan Lacrosse Review. We're lucky enough to have with us today Dalton Crossan, who is a NFL player that's kind of moving over to the PLL and going to have a successful career there, I think, from everything that I've seen and watched. And I guess what I would like to do is take you sort of back to the beginning. Am I saying this right? Say Lake. I still don't want to try the Lake.
Yeah, Lake Ronkonkoma.
Lake Ronkonkoma. You went to high school there.
Yeah.
And, you played 2 sports in high school. Your dad was I think a quarterback or was a player at East Carolina, am I not mistaken?
Yeah, I played defensive back. Yeah, corner.
Where does your athleticism? Does it come from mom or dad or both?
I think both. So, I mean, it's funny. They always like to argue back and forth and say where it came from. But my dad was a very, very good athlete in high school and then played football in college. But my mom was still holds actually a couple track records at Sachem High School, which is the school that I actually graduated from. And then she went and ran track at Binghamton University, which is upstate New York. So, I mean, they were both athletes growing up and through college.
Central Long Island is a hotbed for lacrosse. So, you just kind of grow up playing unless you visit there and see some of the games at Garden City and some of the places, some of the legendary coaches, and it's Levittown. I mean, it's just like you said earlier, it's a little bit like Texas football. It might even be a little bit like Detroit basketball. Right. It's just a different animal in terms of the quality. And you switched high schools. I'm curious why.
So that was actually more of a football-driven decision. I grew up at a high school called Shore and Wading River in that school district, and big lacrosse school actually. Just a much smaller school. I think that school might have had like 250 kids in my graduating class. And I transferred to a school called Sachem North, which brought me from the smallest school division to the biggest school division, where I think I graduated with about 1,000. But Shoreham really wasn't focused on football at all and kind of didn't care about it. We didn't have a good team. It was in a really small school district where there wasn't many recruiters that would, that looked. So it was just in a football sense, was just a much, much better move to go and get recruited and get looked at So we did that. And then I also wound up playing lacrosse there my junior year. I was going to play my senior year, but I got hurt. I had ankle surgery. But my junior year, and that was, again, a bigger division, and even playing against much better competition, even on the lacrosse side, as well as the football side. So we played schools like Ward Melville, West Islip, Smithtown West, which are, some of the national perennial powers every year. So yeah, I mean, that was really what went into the decision to switch schools was mostly football driven, but I did wind up playing lacrosse at Sachem as well.
Is prep football Long Island equivalent to, in terms of a national scale, to lacrosse?
So what do you mean by that?
Is football in Long Island as good as lacrosse is in high school?
Oh, no, not even close. Yeah, you don't get the recruiters, and I think even more so now. It's kind of grown in the past 10 years, 9-10 years since I've graduated, where we're starting to have some bigger Division I recruits come out of Long Island, where schools are starting to realize that it is pretty talented in terms of football. So I think it's grown in that aspect over that period of time. But when I came out, it was you'd be lucky to have 3 or 4 guys go Division I from Long Island every year. And again, Long Island's a pretty dense, densely populated area, where I think I saw a stat like it'd be like the 35th or 36th biggest state in the country if you just go based off population. Like it's very populated. So to only have 3 or 4 guys, to come off Long Island is small for sure. So I don't think we really got that many looks in terms of recruiters and schools that came looking to Long Island. You almost have to go out and find them rather than them, But with lacrosse, it's exactly the opposite. You have every single school and every single, recruiter in the country has their eyes very, very, heavily on Long Island for lacrosse.
I have a good familiarity with John Paul here at the Michigan coach, the former Michigan coach and former PLL coach. He had talked a little bit about you before anybody really knew who you were. Kevin Corrigan, Notre Dame's coach, your name used to come up in discussions. There's this guy in Long Island that's sort of this. Now, you took visits both to Ann Arbor. I'm not sure if you took a visit to South Bend at all.
I did not go to South Bend, no, but I thought about it. But I did take an official visit, to Ann Arbor. Was
Michigan in the mix of making some decisions to come to school here?
Yeah, 100%. I was actually something where I thought about doing both football and lacrosse, but I was told that there was a rule because if I were to come on a full scholarship to Michigan for lacrosse and then also go play football, the football team would have to use essentially one of their 90 scholarships on me as well, because they kind of compared it to, all right, so then, all of a sudden you'd have 10 guys rowing crew that are 6'4", 320 pounds. You know what I mean? Who are on full scholarship for crew, but all of a sudden, so now the football team really has 110 scholarships when they're only supposed to get 90. So that was obviously Michigan football wasn't going to offer me a scholarship. So they weren't willing to, let me play football and have to use one of their 90 scholarships if I was on a full ride for lacrosse. So
now you were the player of the year in Long Island, your senior year?
Yeah. Yep.
Recruited, obviously, if you're being recruited by Notre Dame and Michigan, were you recruited at that level for football?
No, not at that level. Oh, and sorry, by the way, I was not. I don't think they had a Player of the Year award for lacrosse. I led Long Island in goals my junior year. And like I said, I didn't play my senior year because I actually went out and did the first 3 or 4 practices of lacrosse, but my ankle was bothering me a lot. So I went and got it checked out and actually wound up having to have surgery on it. So I didn't get to play lacrosse my senior year, but I was a Player of the Year in football on Long Island.
Okay.
Yeah. My senior year. But no, like I said, it was just a lot tougher to get recruited out of Long Island. So I got 2 Division I-A offers in football from Syracuse and Buffalo. And then just a bunch of Division I AA offers, which is where I wound up going to play at New Hampshire, James Madison, University of Maine, Stony Brook, a lot of schools like that in the Colonial Athletic Association, which is the CAA. That's where I wound up playing at New Hampshire.
Yeah, good career at New Hampshire. We got a great career at New Hampshire. 5,189 all-purpose yards. There's all kinds of guys now playing in the NFL that came out of Division II. I mean,
yeah, 1AA, 2, 3. Yeah, you see it all.
I don't, it used to be in our day, if you played Division III, it was 140 pound, guard, because,
Right.
They needed guys on the football team. And it's the proximity of, I think of Grand Valley State, who's every year they'll have a kid or two that at least gets looked at by the combine.
Right.
New Hampshire is a great place to go to school as well. I don't think sometimes people realize how good of academic school is. What is your academic degree from New Hampshire?
I was a business major and with a double focus in management and marketing.
So what would a 30-year-old Dalton Crossan be doing if he's not going to play lacrosse or play football?
Actually, what I'm doing right now, I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing right now. I work with a full service risk mitigation family office. So we do a lot of, insurances at all different levels, tax mitigation strategies for high net worth individuals, business owners, athletes, entertainers. So that's what I'm doing now. And I absolutely love it. I kind of got into that, a couple months after after I decided to retire from football. I was doing some stuff in Hollywood with a guy who was, owned a production studio, raising money for movies, this, that, and the third. And then I wound up connecting with the CEO and founder here at the company I work for now called Hoteling Insurance Services. I knew nothing about the industry. But he really saw something in me and thought that I could be, very, very good at it, and kind of took me under his wing. But yeah, that's what I'm doing now. And it allows me to leverage a lot of my relationships that I had from playing football, and that I still have, whether it's on the athlete side, my buddies who still play in the league, or from a business owner's, higher net worth guy standpoint. And yeah, so that's what I'll be doing. I plan on doing it for, being a career long thing. So doing it for a while.
So from high school to a smaller college to play football and kind of giving up lacrosse at that point. Now the graduation comes. I don't believe you were drafted. You signed as a free agent with Indianapolis. Am I not mistaken?
Yep, correct.
So how does that kind of work? You phone calls, or you get an agent, or what's the process?
Yeah. So the process was awesome in terms of, from my senior year at college, I probably had about 8 to 10 agents, that were trying to sign me. So they'd fly out, come to the house, and, it's really just recruiting all over again, right? Same thing for college, where the teams are recruiting you. Now the agents are recruiting you, and you have to kind of feel them out, see which one's the best fit for you, and then you sign with one. So that's what I wound up doing, signing with an agent. And then, the process of, I went out to, as soon as my senior year was over, my agent sent me out to Exos out in San Diego, which is where I trained for about 12 weeks leading up to, NFL Combine, Pro Day, all that kind of stuff. So I was actually out there with guys like Patrick Mahomes and Jabril Peppers, Solomon Thomas. Taco Charlton was another first round pick out of there, but we had a really, really good group, and it was awesome to be out there. And especially for me, like a smaller school guy, to go out there and beat these guys in a lot of things, you know what I mean? And really, really show myself, which I knew I could do, but to go out there and do it is, something different in terms of, I could play at this level. I can compete with these kind of guys. So then, just the process of back and forth, talking to teams. I had like 3 private workouts with different teams that came up to New Hampshire. There was 2, going into the draft, I was a projected 6th to 7th round draft pick, or, priority free agent. I actually had 2 teams call me during the 7th round of the draft and tell me that they were going to take me with their next pick. And just, literally looking at the TV, expecting to see my name pop up, and it doesn't. So that's another side of the business where, they'll kind of tell you anything, and, anything goes really. But yeah, so then I probably had about 5 to 6 priority free agent offers. And again, those happened like in the 7th round. So like I knew I was going to sign with Indianapolis before the draft was even over. So I had, probably 6 or 7, 5 or 6 maybe. The Chiefs were one of them. So in hindsight, I almost wish I went there to be with Patrick, because I'm still close with him. And I just remember calling him and, telling him that they gave me a free agent deal. And he was like, yo, you got to come, like, you got to come out right now. Like, we'll start working this, that, so that would have been cool to be able to play with him, obviously. And who knows how it would have shaken out. But at the end of the day, it's really, my agent had put in so much work in terms of what the depth chart looked like, how many conversations he's had with the GM, the running back coach, and, where he thought the best opportunity to make the team would be. And he thought that was Indianapolis. So, like I said, he kind of made that decision, and that's where we went.
I'm a longtime Encinitas, North County, San Diego.
Okay.
I lived there for a long time. And
yeah, we were right in Carlsbad.
yeah,
Carlsbad was
yeah.
was Exos, yeah.
It's funny. I just interviewed a guy we do a sailing program, and this guy's got Sailing Anarchy, and my son was born in Oceanside Hospital, so
Oh wow.
so I know that well, the area quite well. It's a phenomenal facility. I mean, they do
It's unbelievable.
such a good job. You know what some people might not get is there's as many free agents signed after a draft as there are guys drafted.
Exactly, and I think I heard a stat that like, any given year in the NFL, there's like maybe, I don't remember the exact percentage, but it was definitely a pretty staggering percentage where it might have been 50% or it could have been a little over 50% or a little under, maybe 35. I don't remember, but that amount was undrafted free agents compared to the amount of guys that are playing in the NFL that are drafted. So there are, a lot of undrafted guys that wind up, sticking around, and not only sticking around, but becoming, all pros, Hall of Famers. It's pretty cool, to see, especially when I went undrafted.
You mentioned
a great thing to.
You mentioned some team representatives called you and told you were going to be drafted, and all of a sudden didn't show up. Imagine not necessarily being truthful in professional sports, and an amazing.
Right. Exactly.
It comes with the territory. Who can help me next? This is sort of the premise.
Exactly it. If you're not helping them win, they don't care about you at all. I always, say the same thing like Tom Brady. I mean, look what New England did. You know what I mean? With Tom Brady, and look what he did this year. But it doesn't matter who you are, what you've done, how long you've been there. If you're not helping them win today, they could care less about you.
I had a longtime friend who kicked for the New Orleans Saints, and he came out of Sioux Falls College. Ryan Hansen was an All-Pro as a rookie. That's the old days when Bum Phillips was coaching, and was the last years of Stabler. He played a bunch of years, and then Purcell's called him up to New England. And I think his 10th year in the league, which has finally got vested, he'd hurt his leg. Next year, they kind of went to the press and told him what a sissy he was for not kicking for the team because he was this, that, and the other thing. And we used to have long conversations about, my right leg is my future and my business. Right. And that's the first conversation I really ever had to understand the business aspect of the NFL and of pro sports. And there's certain truths to that. When you were working through before you were drafted, was there a moment in your head? I mean, I knew you always had, you talked about having confidence of being able to play, but was there a moment you knew that this really was, there has to be some doubt going into a draft coming out of New Hampshire?
I mean, I wouldn't say even, doubt really, because I knew that I would get signed somewhere just based off the conversations I've had with my agent and, the conversation that he had with teams that really, really liked me, whether it was a 6th, 7th round pick or a priority free agent. And actually a lot of people say, and I think I agree, that it's better to go undrafted and be a priority free agent who a team really, really wants to sign rather than be drafted in the 6th or 7th round, just because of the fact that you have a very similar chance to make the team as a late round draft pick, or, they don't have that much money invested in you, where if you're a 2nd, 3rd round pick, you could come in and be really, really bad, but they're not going to cut you right away because they have, $1 million, $2 million invested in you, where they're going to give you a chance to, you're going to have a longer leash, per se. Right. Whereas a 6th, 7th round pick or priority, undrafted free agent, you really have the same opportunity to make the team, but you get to choose where you go as an undrafted free agent rather than maybe get drafted into a spot that, already has 4, established running backs where you might not have as good of a chance to make the team, compared to you really get to weigh out the options based on what team liked you the best, how many running backs, are on the roster that you have to beat out, system, scheme, all that kind of stuff goes into it. So yeah, I mean, I was thankful to have that opportunity in Indy, and unfortunately, I tore my groin in a preseason game, which was tough. But yeah,
so from Indianapolis to the Bucks in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, so I spent all year on IR, really rehabbing and getting my groin right, and then after I got healthy, they wound up releasing me, and I signed with Tampa Bay. Yeah.
Were you a running back or were you a specialist? I mean, what position did you play in?
Yeah, I was a running back. Yeah, I was listed as a running back, but I was, even at New Hampshire, I was very versatile. And that was kind of, one of the reasons that the NFL liked me so much was just because I could do a lot of different things, from line up in the slot, return kicks, return punts, catch the ball out of the backfield, run between the tackles, pick up blitzes. I could kind of, was pretty good at all of it. So I did a lot, even in the NFL. They, throughout training camp and stuff, they put me in the slot once in a while and lined me up at receiver. That I return kicks, in Indianapolis, I return kicks. So
the Bucks let you go, I think, at some point, and went to.
I got hurt again. Yeah.
What happened that second time?
Hamstring. Yeah, I got hurt in Indy, got hurt in Tampa, and then I went up to Canada and I got hurt there as well. So I had some pretty shitty luck in terms of staying healthy. But yeah, so that was Tampa. I spent most of the year in Tampa on IR as well in 2018, and then 2019 I went up to Ottawa. In
researching some of this story, I always knew it as the Ottawa Rough Riders, and it's now called the Ottawa Red Blacks.
Yeah, Red Blacks.
What is a red black? Is that?
No idea. All I know is the jersey colors. The jersey colors are red and black. So okay. I don't know if a red black is an actual thing, but
I'm assuming Rough Riders had something to do with cowboys and rodeos, and maybe it had something to do with something else. I found that as an odd nickname, and I can't even imagine what the mascot might look like. But at any rate, so at some point, you leave. You've had enough of football, I'm assuming, after the 3 years that you had.
Yeah, it was just that constant cycle of injury, pain, rehab, and then over and over again. Especially when I was performing really, really well in Indy, really, really well in Tampa before I got hurt. So I was on track to, even according to the GMs, make the team and be the third or fourth running back on the depth chart who kind of specialized in being a third down back, catching the ball out of the backfield, plus playing on special teams. And then, snap of the fingers and it's gone and to kind of start over and, have to rehab, get healthy, and then hope you get another opportunity. It's mental too. You know what I mean? It's physical. It definitely takes a toll on your body physically, especially, I had injuries in college as well that started to add up. And then mentally is definitely, it's frustrating. So.
Was any of the injuries related to the way you train or the body type, or did anybody ever give you those any thoughts?
So it actually it was funny. So I had a bunch of hamstring issues at New Hampshire, and my coach was really good friends, or not really good friends, but knew him from the past. A guy named Rusty Jones, who was a head strength and conditioning coach in the NFL for 30 years. He brought him in to kind of take a look at me when I was having a recurring nagging hamstring issue my sophomore year. And Rusty came in and, would check my hip alignment and, put me on a completely new diet and, just really, really gave me some great tips. And he would come in twice a week for the next 3 years to make sure that I stayed right and my hips are always right, and gave me new workouts, and it just completely changed my regimen. And that worked. Obviously, I stayed healthy the rest of my career there. But then when I went off, I didn't have him, you know what I mean, to be there every 2 or 3 weeks. So I tried to do I tried to stay the exact everything that he taught me, but it definitely wasn't the same not having him there, 2 or 3 times a week to make sure that everything was right and that my hips were aligned and all that kind of stuff. So I don't really think it's a way that I trained. I think it was just, a mixture of bad luck and who knows, freakish type stuff where I just wasn't able to stay healthy, unfortunately.
We interviewed Tucker Durkin, and one of the things he talked about being at Johns Hopkins and how everything was so structured. And then when he got drafted into the MLL and then obviously the PLL, he says it was the first year in the pro lacrosse,
right,
was much more free flowing and open. That he wasn't quite having been so structured. He appreciated the field freedom, but sometimes he got lost in the off season and in the off field stuff, right, locker room things, and the rest of it. Not that they didn't have good trainers. It was a different responsibility.
Yeah, you're not there every day, right? In college, it's like you're there every day. You go to practice. You have scheduled workouts. You have training room. Yeah, so and I get it, especially in lacrosse. Lacrosse isn't there yet in terms of like an NFL or, it's a weekend thing really, right? Where you have a practice and a game on the weekend and then you kind of go off and do whatever you want to do during the week. So you got to kind of be self-motivated and, be able to keep training and have your own schedule really, but nobody's telling you what to do, where to be, what time workouts are, right, when to go to training room. So I could see that for sure.
you're an adult. That's it.
Exactly. You're a pro. You got to be a pro. Yeah. That's kind of what we always said, in the NFL, there's a difference between just being there, but really being like a pro's pro. And, cause there's a lot more that goes into it than just, the scheduled meetings and the scheduled workouts. You got to be, your own self motivator and be able to kind of put in the extra work.
I was a longtime New York Times guy, and I was a sports guy for about 15 years before I switched over to news. But in my first years covering the NFL, and I was amazed that, guys, the NFL would have to start programs like how to open your checkbook and just basic business plans. You had guys coming out of college in the late 70s, early 80s that literally could not write. I mean, it was just basic skills. You hand a 21-year-old kid $2 million, and okay, by the way, he has no idea how to manage it. So it's been an interesting transition from the business side. Now, from Ottawa, you would have probably been with the PLL in the chaos prior to the pandemic. Now I think drafted you. So take me from the conversation of where all of a sudden you're going to come back to lacrosse, and you kind of had to sit out a year before you came back this year.
Yeah. So it was, after I decided to be done with football, retire from football, I, as some time went on, a couple months, maybe 4 or 5 months, I have a lot of buddies that, from Long Island that still play, in the MLL, PLL, whatever it was. So, having some conversations with them, with my parents, with whoever, just always said, why not try and play lacrosse or come back in lacrosse? And at first I was kind of like, nah, my body's not feeling great. I've, suffered all these injuries and whatnot. I didn't really think much of it, but then as time went on, my body started to feel better, right? I hadn't had that much time off from football ever, so my body started to feel really good. And now, it feels the best it ever has. So then, just the more time went on, the better and better it started to sound. The more I miss physical competition, right? I'll never lose that. I'm always, a competitor. I want to compete. There's a lot of different ways to compete, obviously, but there's nothing like, physically competing. And especially when my body started to feel better, I feel like I'm still in my athletic prime, at 26, 27 years old. So then I just one day just decided, I was like, I'm gonna do it and really, really put a lot of effort into it and take it super serious. So I reached out to whoever I could in terms of, guys at the PLL, coaches, and started having conversations with people and, talked with Coach Towers and probably 5 or 6 of the other head coaches throughout the PLL, let them know, who I was, my story, that I wanted to come back and play. And then, just kind of took it from there. And then obviously, would have most likely gotten picked up to have an opportunity if the season was normal, in 2020, but the championship series, the tournament, the 3-week tournament that they had, got announced, and the roster sizes were different and the rules to pick up free agents, everything kind of changed. So that obviously slowed the process.
Did Andy's, I don't know who the first one that was legit in terms of talking to you about it, but was Andy's connection to you through maybe JP, because JP had talked glowingly of your visit to both Ann Arbor and just the way you were as an athlete. Was there any connection to those 2 guys?
No, there wasn't. Actually, the person who first put me in touch with Coach Towers was my high school coach, Jay Morrow from Sachem North. So he was my high school coach, and he, knew Coach Towers and just, put an email together and copied me on it. And that was really the first time, that I spoke with Coach Towers, and we, set up a phone call, had a phone conversation, and then kind of, just stayed in touch, throughout the process, and kind of, obviously it didn't work out in 2020, but, stayed in touch, and he said that his interest in me hadn't changed, and, here we are. So
what do you think your chances of making the roster?
I'm confident. I'm a confident guy. I always have been. So I think that, there will definitely be some way where I can make, the chaos better and really, really add value. But like I said, I know that it's a challenge, and, I haven't played in a while, so I got to get, used to it. But I have plans to, before training camp, get with a bunch of buddies who play in the PLL and get live reps and, be as ready as possible. But just in terms of an athletic standpoint, I feel like I can come in and definitely add value in, the defensive midi, transition using my speed. I feel like I can definitely, add value there. So
I think the 10-yard shorter field has made such a difference in the game itself. And
yeah, so everything I see is like, I mean, and everything like the coaches say is that like, athleticism, speed, that really, really, adds value much more now even than it did before, just with the shorter field and the shorter shot clock.
I think of the old 4-second drill. You try to get your team to play faster. You blow the whistle at 4 seconds. You got to pass the ball. And to me, that 10 yards is when I watch that sport. I'd like to see them take 10 yards out of high school and 10 years out of college. I think it would be a better sport.
Right.
It's only been the last 4 or 5 years that even second and third and fourth graders are playing on shortened fields. Nothing worse than seeing a fourth grade lacrosse team and some kid with, grass this deep and he's running.
Yeah.
It takes him 17 minutes to run to the other end and he drops the ball.
Exactly. And it's fun too, just from a fan's perspective, right? Just faster, like fast pace. That's kind of what fans like to see, I think.
Well, I think the Olympic process has helped us adapt some things that are a little bit different in place of the PLL. It's just, I think, more friendly to television because it's a faster game.
Right.
I think they learned from hockey a little bit. They were smart enough with hockey to hire the CBC announcers because they may be the best broadcast team in professional sports. Conversely, I think at the same time, I think they were smart enough to recognize that hockey's a great sport, but it lacks on television. It's just a different sport.
Right. Right.
If we were to watch you tomorrow play, is there anybody that your game is similar like since you've been away from the game for a while?
In terms of lacrosse?
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. I couldn't tell you, honestly. I mean, I know a lot of the guys and I've watched PLL games. Like I said, I have buddies, but nobody really comes to mind in terms of, what my game would be similar to, especially because I don't even know exactly what my game's like. You know what I mean? Having not played, I don't know exactly what kind of role I'm going to fit into yet. I'm confident, like I said, that there will be a specific role that I can play, but until we kind of get out there and get rolling, we'll see exactly what that is.
I don't mean to be rude, and I'm just curious. You're a confident guy, and I get all that, but you're going from a high school lacrosse program. We interviewed Bill Wolford, who was a coach with the Ohio Machine, and Bill goes from high school and never coaches college, and now he's coaching with Bear Davis on the sidelines. It's one thing to coach, and we talked a little bit about that transition. One day you're with your high school kids, the next day you're standing with all these pro players, and even for a coach, it takes a little while for the transition. You take a high school from New Hampshire to the Colts was a transition.
Of course,
you're now jumping in with the best 235 players in the world. Is there any doubt anywhere, or are you that confident you can play?
I'm not confident I could play. Like I said, there's no doubt. I don't really doubt myself ever in anything. I think that's got me to, maybe I should. Yeah. I don't know, but I've never had. Cool. Yeah. No, for me personally, I just don't have that, makeup, that mentality at all to doubt myself. I'm confident in what I do, confident in my athletic ability, and at the same time, I can't stress enough though, how I understand the challenge, you know what I mean? And I understand, but that's kind of what I relish, that challenge, and really, really, excited for the opportunity to go out there and prove myself. Like I said, I've always had to prove myself at every level of football, and then even lacrosse back then when I was in high school. But yeah, I mean, that drives me to work harder, you know what I mean? And that drives me to make sure that I'm as ready as possible. And, like I said, I'm just looking forward to competing and looking forward to the challenge. And yeah, we'll see what happens, but
every coach wants confidence, and you're confident without being cocky. And I hope that you take that as a compliment.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
And the other thing that professional sports coach wants is he wants consistency. That's really all he wants. He wants to be able to depend on you doing the same thing at a high level on a regular basis. There's nothing worse for a professional coach to have an athlete who can't show up one night and then be an All-American the next. You can get away with that in high school, and you get away with that a little bit in college. In the pros, you can't, because it's basically you're taking advantage of everybody plays pretty much at the same level. There's exceptions, but being consistent is really the kind of point. Now, when does camp open for you guys? I think in about a month.
No, I think a little bit later than that. I think it's May. Yeah, I think it's May, because I think the first weekend is June 4th. So I think that there's like a 2 or 3 week period in May where we have training camp.
And where's camp this year?
I don't think they've announced it, but I know in the past it's been at IMG Academy in Florida. Okay. So I would assume that's where it is, but I'm not sure.
you're playing for one of the best coaches, I think, in the league, and one of the guys that not only knows how to play, he's also got a similar background to yours. Andy's a little bit bigger physically, but Andy kind of came through that same format where, you always kind of doubted the guy, and he kept showing up and was one of the best attackmen that played the game. And so I think, and he's also a player's coach. Not that the other guys aren't, but I think he'd be a fun guy to play for, and I think you know that.
Yeah, I've heard that. I mean, unfortunately, I haven't met him in person yet, but we've had, numerous conversations on the phone and back and forth. And then plus, I'm pretty close friends with two guys on the team already, Troy Ray and Tommy Kelly, who I kind of grew up around and training with and whatnot. So they tell me, all about him and how much they love him and love playing for him. Great players coach, obviously an unbelievable coach, was a great player. So I'm really, really excited to play for him. We've definitely established a relationship in the past, year since kind of I made that decision that I was going to play, and we've been going back and forth.
Is there something that you're looking forward to? Is there something sort of quietly in the back of your brain that's like, this is going to be kind of cool?
I mean, just the entire experience, honestly. Yeah. I mean, I'm very excited to play for the challenge, right? To prove people wrong, to prove people right. So a lot of people believe in me. A lot of people doubt me. That's kind of, that comes with the territory. And I love that. I appreciate both sides of it. So I'm excited to, just get out there and compete really and get back into physical competition. It's been, probably about 1.5 years, 2 years since I've, last stepped on a football field and had that feeling of, that adrenaline rush of competing physically, which I love, I always have, and I've been doing it for my whole life. So excited to get back to that.
I think with buying the MLL and putting those two together, now getting an opportunity to play maybe field lacrosse in a season and a turnaround, and maybe some of those guys playing in NLL when it's not, competing factions. Now all of a sudden, I think it becomes a much more viable television sport. And if it's got a television contract, it's going to be much more successful than if it doesn't.
100%. Yeah.
I think that's the point. And you guys are actually starting to make reasonable money as compared to what it used to be in the old days when you're lucky enough, maybe you've made $500 for a weekend. And
exactly. Yeah. I think a lot of the guys too are, it's becoming more of I think the PLL has done a tremendous job just in terms of, the new school approach of, social media, fan interaction, getting these TV deals, these sponsorships, they have a lot of private equity backing from a lot of, really, really big time, credible companies, sources, whoever. But yeah, it's something that I'm definitely looking forward to being a part of. I think that it's just at the beginning, you know what I mean? The infancy stages and who knows where lacrosse will be in 10 years. I think a lot of the guys, like I was saying before, are already starting to make this a full-time thing because they're able to go play for pretty good money, especially in terms of what it used to be. And then they get to use the entire off season to, they have that platform now to go around and travel and do camps and clinics and, showcases and whatnot, where they can really, really make lacrosse a full-time job, which I think is awesome. That the PLL is able to do that and allow people to do that. So like I said, I'm excited to be a part of it and, hopefully, God willing, I'll be able to, be a part of it for some years to come.
Yeah. Well, listen, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I appreciate you've been so professional in reaching out and talking with us and having the opportunity. Mom and Dad did a great job. And I don't say that condescendingly. I just say that I've never met a great kid from a bad parent. And it's just, as a coach, you're the kind of guy that you'd want to be able to have the opportunity to coach because it makes your job easy. And
awesome. I appreciate that a lot. Yeah. Thank you.
And I think that's something that hopefully if you're watching this interview, you'll get that. So listen, I wish you the best. And we look forward to seeing you play. Andy's invited us to come out maybe for a game or two, and hopefully we're going to be able to do that this summer.
Yeah, I hope so too. It'll
be fun, and best of luck. And I can't tell you how much I've appreciated your time, and I will say thank you very much.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I appreciate you. Appreciate your time as well. Looking forward to hopefully meeting you in person, at a game or wherever. But I'm sure this won't be the last time we speak. So again, let me know if there's anything I could do, to help going forward.
Yeah. Dalton, thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.